The important thing is the voter needs to be more discerning and needs to have certain guiding principles. For example, I think after the Aragale and after the demonstration of active citizenry where the voter is no longer, by and large, willing to elect somebody and then remain silent for 4 years or 5 years, I think what is required is a zero tolerance for certain kinds of issues. For example, corruption of any kind, nepotism, illegal activity of any kind, and the sort of failure of governance. So if somebody has demonstrated that he or she is not listening to the voter, has been corrupt, or has aided and abetted corruption, or turned a blind eye, or not being sensitive to the needs of people, they should be rejected. I think in order to do that, voters have to go beyond the idea of the party and, vote for parties generation after generation. That, I think, is a mistake, and that needs to change, particularly with the kinds of politics we have now where people change their party after being elected. They vote in various kinds of ways. So one has to recognize that individuals matter, and therefore the individual's track record, both in terms of delivering good governance, transparency and accountability, being accountable to the voter, and also in terms of the ethics and the sort of behavior of the elected representatives. So I think that if that judgment is abrogated, if the voter votes on other kinds of lines like obtaining favors, receiving favors, or because somebody is a member of a party, or because they have 4 or 5 members of their family, or because of wealth and other kinds of promises, I think we are going to be back to square one. But I'm more hopeful than most because I believe that with the Aragale and the sort of understanding that the general citizenry got from there, they recognize their power. That's the sleeping elephant. So having understood their power, I think they need to wield it very responsibly and carefully and not to accept any story. I think most importantly is the performance of the person seeking their vote. What is his or her performance? What have they achieved? What do they promise to deliver? So I think those statements are important. I also believe that things like the asset declaration and so on, those should be criteria. That people who have declared their assets, who demonstrate their personal integrity and honesty, that also should be rewarded. We should not go on extremely feudal kind of arrangements like caste and class and region and other kinds of things. The voter needs to be much more gender sensitive. We need to have more women, but not women necessarily who are wives or sisters or daughters of existing politicians, but women who can assert their rights, who can speak for on behalf of women, who are articulate and who believe in gender equality and in the broad issue of justice. We also need to cross these very narrow parochial lines of ethnicity, language, religion, and region. We need to think much broader. And I think here the issue I want to foreground is the issue of socioeconomic class. I think the poor and the underclass group need to recognize that their interests lie in those who are interested in their welfare, not in those who believe in crazy theories of economics that have worked nowhere, such as a trickle down and so on, which thinks that big business is going to be able to solve the problem of the poor. We need to decide on what kind of development program is being espoused, is being promoted. So I think the statements of the parties and individuals are very important. The track record of those who are seeking election is extremely important, and the accountability. So I think that's very important, that they need to be able to say, these are things we're going to deliver. These are things we stand for. Do we stand for the 13th Amendment? Do we stand for equality? Do we stand for workers' rights? Do we stand for social justice? Are we, for a multi-ethnic, multilinguistic, plural society in Sri Lanka? Or do we stand for one particular ethnic group or one particular class or caste or one political view? I think there are also things that are very important, such as free education, free health, and other services. That those things need to be up on the up front, and the candidates need to inform voters about where they stand regarding those, and voters should vote on principles, not on party lines, not on other, as I said, feudal connections. But what are promises? Those need to be kept, and the minimum standards. I believe that there should be minimum standards, such as I said, the evolution of power, the recognition of rights of everybody, the freedom of expression, the fundamental rights clauses without any impediment, not using existing laws to curtail and penalize members of so-called ethnic minorities or religious groups or anything like that. But we need a plural society. We need a society that is progressing, in which the views of the poorest, of the underclass groups are heard, and any kind of development must be in their favor. It must be pro-poor in that sense, not one that has big business, not one that is sort of unabashedly neoliberal and therefore believes that the markets and so on need to be protected and markets are inherently fair, because they're not. And it cannot be a win-win situation. Some people who have great privileges and who enjoy unequally and unfairly large amounts of wealth will have to suffer, I think, and there has to be a greater divide. So there has to be equality in terms of taxation, there has to be recourse for the poor, and be very clear, the social safety net is crucial. That is what we have managed to maintain a kind of quality of life despite wars and other issues, because of that is being dismantled. So I think we need to be able to, the voter needs to be able to protect that. It's in his or her hands, this particular thing. Election is crucial, whichever election it will be, and there will be one next year. So it's the voter who needs to demonstrate his or her value system, his or her power and might at that point, because otherwise you will get the politicians you deserve. And remember, the politicians form a kind of class, the political class with their cronies and their henchmen and all of that. So it's in the hands of the voters. It's a very, very important, crucial juncture for the history of the country. And I hope and I trust that with the experience of the Aragale and all of that happened, I think that they will recognize and use their vote carefully and well